How can we use business and industry to contribute to nation building? That has been the core of the Tata brand. The one lesson we can take away from the story of Kalpana Chawla and JRD Tata is set your sights very high and have the courage to pursue your dreams, like Kalpana Chawla did and like JRD Tata. His slogan for the making of the Tata Indica was, "We need a car as large as the Ambassador, as fuel efficient as the Maruti, and as stylish as the Zen." His people, his leadership team and he went round the world looking for plants that they could buy. They found a disused Nissan plant in Australia. They were able to negotiate buying out that plant at 1/5 to 1/6 the cost of a new car plant. They disassembled that plant brick by brick in Australia, brought it to Pune and established the first Tata Indica plant in Pune. Why did Jamsetji Tata create India's first integrated steel plant? Because he believed that India should not be dependent on Europe for all its steel requirements.
Hello viewers, welcome to our special episode in VisionIAS. Today we have with us our esteemed guest, Harish Bhat Sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the warm welcome and look forward to speaking to you.
Harish Bhat Sir is a truly inspiring leader. He has worked in Tata Group for almost 38 years and his experience is uncommandable. And he has worked as Managing Director of Tata Beverages earlier. He was instrumental in building Tata brand, especially the jewelry brand. And he has a wide experience in marketing, and his sir is also in the CMO list, Chief Marketing Officers list of the Forbes in 2022-23. And it's an inspiring journey, and we are delighted to have sir here and to share his views with respect to several aspects. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Ram. Really appreciate your having me on this conversation. And I look forward to adding as much value as possible to all the viewers who are listening to this.
Thank you, sir. And sir, to start with your experience, you have such a fantastic experience over 38 years in Tata Group. So you worked in building brands. You also worked in terms of reviving companies. So one small question I'll start with. Generally, today's youth keeps jumping organizations every now and then. It is very difficult for us to stay at a certain place for 1 year or 2 years. And you are in one organization for almost 38 years. What is that one factor that would have motivated you to stay with the Tata Group for so many years?
So that's a wonderful question. I don't have a value judgment about how many years a person should stay in an organization. I think I have stayed in the Tata Group for 38 years. I know colleagues of mine who have also moved from one organization to the other and done very well. I would say there are 4 important reasons why I have been with the Tata Group for 38 years. First, I think the Tata Group has given me very interesting work to do. I am a marketer. I love working with brands, with consumer behavior, with sales, with retailing. And the Tata Group has given me more than adequate opportunity to work with brands like Tata Tea, Chakra Gold Tea, Tanishq, Titan, Fast Track, Sonata, and in the last part of my career, I was brand custodian of the Tata brand. So I would say interesting work is perhaps the one reason that I would like to put forward. But alongside that has also been, I think, the care that the Tata Group has for its people. I have felt very cared for throughout my tenure with the group. And there are many, many occasions when I have faced issues, when I have faced problems, where the group has always been, very caring and very respectful. And it is so of many of my colleagues and myself. The Tatas are very caring of their people. The third reason I would say is I feel happy working with the Tatas because in my 38 years of my career, not once has the Tata Group asked me to do anything which is against my conscience.
That's fantastic.
And that is important. That's important because you can sleep well at night. You can keep your head held high in society. And that's another reason why I've loved working with the Tata Group. But finally, when I work with the Tata Group, I feel that I'm contributing to the community and to India. The Tata Group is owned by the Tata Charitable Trust. 66% of Tata Sons is owned by the Tata Charitable Trust. So, in a sense, this is a group which is owned by a charitable organization which gives back to society. And therefore, I feel the work I do here, the profits that I earn, whether I was the MD of Tata Global Beverages or the Chief Operating Officer of Titan Watches, I eventually feel that a good part of those profits go back to society through the Tata Charitable Trust. And that gives me a great sense of purpose in my career and life. So it's a combination of all these factors that I have mentioned to you, which makes Tata's such a wholesome organization. I actually tell people I have two marriages in my life, one to my wife and one to the Tata Group.
Fantastic, sir. And sir, actually today when we look at brands, so since you have a great experience in branding,
Yeah.
so we are taught in our management schools. I was also an MBA grad, so when we talk about branding, it's all about mathematical models or how do we brand a product. But what I find in Tata's, it has a unique branding. And is there a special effort in branding products in Tata, or is it an inbuilt culture of Tata's that itself has become a brand?
So, firstly, I do not agree that brands are about mathematical models. You can use mathematical models to analyze brands and to analyze the impact that brands are having on customers. But a brand, at the end of the day, is about an idea. And every brand, every great brand in this world has a core idea to it. And if that idea appeals to customers, if it appeals to society, then that brand becomes successful. This is not just about Tata brands, it's about any brand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
With the Tata brand, the core idea of Tata for the last 150 plus years has been the idea of nation building. At the Tatas, I think we are very successful in business. The Tata Group has built many industries over the last 157 years. The Tatas are market leaders in many segments of industry in India. Whether you take commercial vehicles, you take salt, you take tea, you take air conditioners, I can go on and on.
Yes, sir.
But at the same time, the Tatas have also focused on industries which go towards nation building. Right from the time Jamsetji Tata established steel more than a century ago, to right now, the Tata Group establishing a very new age industry in semiconductors. The entire voyage has been, how can we use business and industry to contribute to nation building? That has been the core of the Tata brand. So, that singular idea of nation building is present across so many businesses of the brand. Therefore, I would say that any brand, any marketer wishing to establish a brand should first and foremost know what does your brand stand for and establish that core idea in the minds of consumers.
Fantastic, sir. Sir, and can you narrate some experiences in your career which have inspired you a lot, and I think you're still carrying it forward? That is, I can call it as learnings, or can we call it as few stories or few real life examples because of your vast experience, which will motivate our audience, and also we'll get to know exactly like how things moved on in Tata Group.
Sure. So, I would like to narrate one example on the business side and one example on the people side. So, when I started my career in Tata Tea, I was a very young assistant manager, and my initial stints were in marketing and sales. And we were just about building a brand. Tata Tea was a small plantation company at that time, and we were building a brand called Tata Tea, which was taking on a huge consumer multinational, Hindustan Unilever, which had the Brook Bond brand and the Lipton brand in tea. And what I remember of those days is that we had a great challenger mindset. The Tata Tea brand was built by my seniors at that time in the company, but I had an opportunity to observe them very closely. We built the brand very differently from the market leader brands at that time. If the market leader brands of tea were packed in cartons, Tata Tea was packed in polypacks. The attribute with which Tata Tea was launched, garden fresh tea, was completely new in the market. No brand of tea had used such an attribute before. And the tea was truly very fresh. Tata Tea understood that tea is made differently in different parts of India. So it introduced different blends under the Tata Tea brand. And today I would think there are more than 20, 25 blends which are available across the country from the Tata Tea brand. We built a very low cost distribution model which reached tea across the country, in many places piggybacking on the Tata Salt distribution model. The advertising was very different of Tata Tea in those days. If I still remember the initial lines used to be Bagano se chuni, bagano mein pack ki gayi chai, Tata chai asli tazgi. So the advertising was very different. I still remember some of those iconic advertisements of those days, like Anu Tazgi De De, which took the market by storm. So, in many ways, what Tata Tea did in those days was very different from the market leader. And the lesson I learned from it is if you're a challenger brand in the market, don't follow the market leader. Do things which are very different from the market leader, but which are still solving a consumer problem. That is when your brand can be at the most successful. That's one lesson that I would like to leave
Fantastic,
behind.
sir.
And that helped Tata Tea. Tata Tea got to becoming a very, very popular brand by being a challenger and doing things differently. But I must now move to a story which is more on the people dimension. And in my early years with the Tata Group, when I was maybe 29, 30, 31 years, I used to work for a couple of years as an executive assistant to the then chairman of Tata Tea, whose name was Darbari Seth. He was a legendary business leader. He established companies like Tata Chemicals and Tata Tea and Rallis India. So I worked as an executive assistant with him for about 2 years in Bombay. And after that, I was posted back to my sales and marketing organization in Tata Tea in Bangalore. So I returned to Bangalore. I'm now talking of the 1990s. And very soon after I came back to Bangalore, my wife and I, we had got married in 1992. In 1995, we had our first daughter, our only child. So I wrote to Darbari Seth, he was chairman of the company. I said, Sir, we have been blessed with a baby daughter. I seek your blessings. He wrote back, conveying his blessings. I think he also enclosed a check as a gift. So I was very happy. I showed it to my daughter, I showed it to my wife, I showed it to my parents, the letter. And then I kept the letter in my file. I thought that's the end of this now because Mr. Darbari Seth is a very busy person. He's the chairman of the company. But 3 months later, I suddenly receive a phone call. I'm at the Tata Tea marketing office in Yashwantpur in Bangalore. And a very senior official of Tata Coffee calls me and says, our chairman, Mr. Darbari Seth, is passing through Bangalore today. He's on his way from our coffee plantations going back to Bombay. And he wants to come home and visit your baby daughter. So I was amazed. I immediately called my wife. She was in her office on Primrose Road in Bangalore. I said, listen, our chairman wants to come home to see our daughter. Please come. Let's go and tidy up our living room and be ready for him to come. So we went home, tidied up our small living room and waited. And by 3 o'clock that afternoon, Darbari Seth turns up at our home. He spends time with my daughter, holds her in his hands, spends time with my parents, with my wife and me, is with us for about half an hour and then leaves. And for me, I have never forgotten that day. I may have forgotten the sales targets that I met in Tata Tea in the 1990s or the bonuses that I got from Tata Tea in those years. But I will never forget the fact that the chairman of the company took time to come to my house to meet my baby daughter and convey his blessings in person. Now, the reason I am narrating that is it's a very simple instance. And and it's not just me. There are many other people in the Tata Group who have worked with Darbari Seth or with other legends who will narrate similar stories to you. The point I want to make is that people are the most important part of any enterprise. And the care that you demonstrate for people is what really matters at the end of the day. That is what people remember. And that is what sets culture in organizations. And I still have that photograph with me. And I still fondly remember that day as one of the high points of my life. So that's the other experience from working with the Tata Group that I'd like to narrate. I can narrate many, many stories like this, but perhaps these are a couple of stories that we can bear in mind.
That's fantastic, sir. The human element is clearly visible.
Of course, the human element is the most important element in any company. As much as you may, talk about strategy and you may talk about AI and you may talk about technology and you may talk of many other things, underpinning all these is the human element.
Fantastic, sir. So I just wanted to know, were there any situations in the Tata Group where things were not going your way and there was a lot of stress and you were able to handle those situations efficiently? And in the competitive business environment, there are short-term targets for any business, and there is huge amount of competition, which can put us down anytime. And holding on to values, there is always this conflict. Is this value important, or is it the profit that is important for me? And especially for the budding entrepreneurs right now, the profit becomes more compelling for them because of the investors pressure on one side, and there are shareholders on the other side. So basically performing at any cost is becoming a burden, and managing value system and taking these values across generations, which is generally rare, because values are generally, a person comes up with values, but values being a part of the ecosystem which is transferred over generations together is not an easy task. So I just wanted to know, how could Tata manage this?
Okay. So, of course, there have been stressful situations in my career, no doubt about it. I have led a listed company of the group. I have been a chairman of a listed company of the group. I have been the chief operating officer of businesses where every month there were sales targets to be met, there were profit targets to be met, and there are many months where I have met and exceeded the targets, but some months where I have also fallen short of the targets. When you work in a competitive marketplace, whether it was tea or whether it was watches or jewelry, there will always be stress because you are competing against the best in the field and you have to deliver in the midst of that competition. Uh, but what I've understood through my long career with the Tata Group is that you don't compromise on values because of stress. The reason the Tata Group has existed and prospered for more than 150 years now, the reason over 750 million Indians use some Tata product or service is because of the trust they have in Tata. And one of the reasons for that trust in Tata is the value systems that the Tata Group has. Therefore, customers know, people know that the Tata Group is committed to doing business in a fair manner. The Tata Group will give me products and services of good quality. The Tata Group will stick by its commitments. And these are the reasons why trust in the Tata brand is very strong. And that is because of the value systems of the Tata Group. I completely agree with you. There will be pressure month to month, quarter to quarter to produce results, to produce profits. But if you take shortcuts and if you deviate from the core values which are important to you, you will lose respect from society eventually. If you want to build a company for the long term, you have to stay with your values. And this is true not just of the Tata Group. There are many, many other well regarded groups in the world which I know which stay by their values, do business by their values, and therefore have existed and prospered for a long period of time. It's also true of people, not just of companies. You respect a person when the person sticks by his or her values. You may envy a person if the person is very wealthy. or you may envy a person if the person is very successful. But true respect will come when you actually look at people who will stick by their values at all times. Then you know, here is a person that I can trust, here is a person that I can really do business in a good way with.
That's very inspiring, sir. I think this is one of the foundations for Tata Group to stay for such a long period. And today it is basically organizations come and go. And today we see that the value systems of Tata, and that is the main reason why the Tata has stayed
Yeah.
for such a long
So,
period.
you know, I have been a student of business history and I have written many books about the history of the Tata Group as well. And what I find, and I've also read other books about the longevity of companies. The average age of a Fortune 500 company is about 40 years.
Yes.
After 40 years, a company grows, it prospers, and after 40 or 50 years, it then declines. Compared to that, the fact that the Tata Group has existed and prospered for 150 plus years and continues to be such a large, well respected, and trusted group means that the group has been doing something right. And I would attribute a lot of this to the philosophy of Jamsetji Tata, to his insistence that business be done keeping nation building in mind and keeping ethical principles in mind, and to also how all the leaders of the Tata Group after him have taken forward the same philosophy.
Harish Bhat Sir is a prolific writer. He has written many books, many inspiring books, in fact. And his recent book, Jamsetji Tata Ji, also on Jamsetji Tata Ji, is also there. And it also talks about values and business together. And there is a book called Tata Stories, which was a fantastic book about inspiring stories, 40 stories of the Tatas. And I want you to explain some of the interesting stories from your books, which will enlighten the audience, sir.
So, firstly, thank you for saying that. I love writing, and it is true. I have published many books. Um I love the art of storytelling because I think stories from organizations explain the character of those organizations and the culture of those organizations much better than any conceptual framework can. My most recent book, Jamshedji Tata Powerful Learnings for Corporate Success, was about the ideas of Jamshedji Tata and how those ideas have actually powered the Tata Group over such a long period of time. How have those ideas carried forward? And like you rightly said, the book of Tata history before that, Tata Stories, was 40 simple stories from the history of the Tata Group. So let me narrate a couple of those stories for you. You know, one story which is one of my favorites from that book is the story of Kalpana Chawla and J.R.D. Tata. All of us know Kalpana Chawla. She was the first Indian born astronaut in space, woman astronaut in space. Now, Kalpana Chawla was a young student who did all her schooling in India, her initial college in India, before she went to the United States and did her aeronautics engineering. She became the first Indian woman astronaut. She went into space. Unfortunately, she passed away at a very young age when the Challenger spacecraft had an accident. After she passed away, and she's greatly admired. She's greatly admired. She's an icon to all of us today. But after she passed away, one day there was a packet which arrived on the table of Mr. Ratan Tata. It was a letter from her parents and it had some memorabilia in it. And one of the memorabilia that they sent was a small black and white photograph of J.R.D. Tata's first flight. And the letter said that this was a photograph that Kalpana Chawla carried with her on her first journey into space. Now, I tried understanding why did this happen? why did Kalpana Chawla carry this small black and white photograph of JRD Tata on her first journey into space? Why did she cherish this photograph so much? Now, this story goes back to the days, in 1930s, JRD Tata started the first Indian commercial airline, Tata Airlines, which went on to become Air India. But 50 years later, in 1982, when the 50th anniversary of this airline was celebrated, of Air India was celebrated, JRD Tata by then was an elderly person. He must have been past 75 years of age. And they wanted to recreate that first flight of Air India from Karachi to Mumbai via Ahmedabad. And even though JRD Tata was well ahead of 75 years of age, he said, I will pilot this flight. And when that 50th anniversary flight was recreated, JRD Tata piloted the aircraft himself from Karachi to Mumbai via Ahmedabad. Despite the fact that he was not in the best of health, but he still did that. And one of the people who was watching JRD Tata's recreation of this flight was Kalpana Chawla. So she saw this man piloting this flight even at his advanced age, and she was very inspired by this adventure. In fact, she has said it later that she was very inspired and very intrigued by JRD Tata. And this was one of the reasons why Kalpana Chawla then decided that she wanted to study aeronautics. She went to the US, she studied aeronautics there, she joined NASA, and eventually she became an astronaut. And it is because she was so inspired by JRD Tata that she carried his black and white photograph into space the first time she went into space. There are two lessons from this for me. One, any act which you do, like JRD Tata's act of flying the 50th anniversary flight, if it's an act of, courage, it inspires so many people. Like JRD Tata's act inspired Kalpana Chawla. The second is Kalpana Chawla's own example tells us to set our sights very high. She set her sights very high. And she was able to do things which we can only dream of, becoming an astronaut. And I would urge all our viewers here, the one lesson we can take away from the story of Kalpana Chawla and JRD Tata is set your sights very high and have the courage to pursue your dreams, like Kalpana Chawla did and like JRD Tata did. But a second story that I would like to narrate to you is from the times of Ratan Tata, who is well known to every Indian. And I am now talking of the 1990s, when Ratan Tata stood up and announced at an Automobile Association meeting that India should have its own indigenously designed and produced car, its own indigenous car. At that time, we had two good cars on the road, the Maruti 800 and the Hyundai. But the Maruti was designed in Japan and then was being assembled in Gurgaon. The Hyundai similarly was designed in Korea, was being assembled in Sriperumbudur. But Ratan Tata wanted a car which was truly indigenous, which is designed for Indian families, for Indian roads, made out of Indian parts, manufactured in India. And he said, why cannot we come together and make India's first indigenous car? But a lot of industry was skeptical of, they said making a car is very highly technologically advanced. India doesn't have the capability to do it. So Ratan Tata said, if the industry cannot come together, we'll do it in Tata Motors. Tata Motors was a small company at that time. It was primarily a commercial vehicle maker which made trucks. So Ratan Tata had a very inspiring slogan in those days. He said, his slogan for the making of the Tata Indica was, we need a car as large as the Ambassador, as fuel efficient as the Maruti, and as stylish as the Zen. Zen also, you will remember, is a car from those days. So the engineers of the Engineering Research Center of Tata Motors in Pune, working along with IDEO of Turin, they designed the Tata Indica. For its time, I'm talking of the late 1990s here, it was a breathtakingly different design. A design like the Indica had not been seen on Indian roads at all. But then they had to manufacture the Tata Indica, and setting up a car plant is very expensive, costs north of $2 billion. Tata Motors did not have that kind of money at that time. But did that challenge set back Ratan Tata? No. His people, his leadership team, and he went round the world looking for plants that they could buy. They found a disused Nissan plant in Australia. They were able to negotiate buying out that plant at one-fifth to one-sixth the cost of a new car plant. They disassembled that plant brick by brick in Australia, brought it to Pune, and established the first Tata Indica plant in Pune. They had to train workers to assemble the Indica. I have spoken to some of those workers in the Tata Motors plant in Pune. Even today, they cry with joy when they think of the fact that they assembled India's first car. They spoke to me in Marathi, but they spoke very beautifully and very emotionally. Um, the first Indica, I am told, took 8 days to assemble. Today, you go to a Tata Motors plant in Pune, less than a minute, you will find a new car coming out every day, the Harrier or the Nexon or all the cars, the Punch that you see today. Uh, a new car has more than 3,500 discrete parts in it. So Tata Motors had to create or develop ancillary units which could make those parts indigenously. And that took a lot of effort. But by the time the Indica was launched, 97% of those parts were indigenously made in India. And that's how the Tata Indica was created. Initially, there were some quality issues with the Indica, but those were quickly resolved. And by the early 2000s, the Indica V2, which had been launched, went on to become the fastest selling car on the face of India for not just a year, but I think a couple of years after that. So today you see some fantastic Tata cars on the road, the Tata Harrier, the Tata Nexon, the Tata Punch, the electric vehicles that Tata has launched. But this is the origin of how the Tata passenger vehicle business started. One man's dream, Ratan Tata's dream, that he wants to make India's first indigenous car. And people have asked Ratan Tata, what gave you the courage to do this? And he said that courage came from the fact that we had young engineers in Tata Motors who were raring to go and make this car. And he said, one of the reasons he did it was so that the young of India can be inspired, that you can do things which are sometimes you may think they're out of your reach, but you can do things which are out of your reach and achieve this. And the Tata Indica has been, I think, a path-breaking innovation for India. It's helped the overall level of engineering excellence, the overall automotive industry in the western part of the country to come out so beautifully well. And it is a great story of pioneering. Just like Jamsetji Tata established India's first steel plant, or JRD Tata established India's first commercial airline, Ratan Tata's establishing of the Tata Indica is also a story which is the stuff of legend. So I thought I would narrate these two stories to you of Kalpana Chawla and JRD Tata and Ratan Tata's creation of the Tata Indica. But if you read Tata Stories or you read the book on Jamsetji Tata, which I have co-authored, you will find many, many such inspiring stories there. And I would say these are stories from the history of the Tata Group. But truly speaking, they are stories of India's industrial development, which has close parallels with the development of the Tata Group. They are stories that belong to every Indian. But more importantly, these are stories which can inspire us. When you read the Kalpana Chawla and JRD Tata story, or you read the Ratan Tata and Tata Indica story, they are stories that can inspire us and ask us, can you do more with your own life? They are stories which provoke us. And that is the reason to read these inspiring stories. Because we all live life once. And in that one life, using the capabilities that God has given us, what can we do to add maximum value to our community, to the nation, and to ourselves? I think that is what these stories are designed to do. That's why I write these books. And that's why I feel very fulfilled as an author when people read these stories and then they write to me and say, Harish, this story of Kalpana Chawla and JRD Tata has made me do ABC, or has helped me to think in this direction. um, that's what I think writing is designed to do, to provoke young minds and get them to think about what they themselves want to do in the future.
Fantastic, sir. Hello, viewers. One small suggestion to you from our side. So, such inspiring stories are waiting for you. And one is such an inspirational story, especially talking about Kalpana Chawla's, and also another important story about Atmanirbharta. So Atmanirbharta as a concept has been there since Tatas are there. So Tatas have initiated the concept long back. And today we understand the global dynamics and how it is important for us to stand or become self-sufficient. So in the changing times, sir. So
Yeah,
how do you
this is true. This is absolutely true. Why did Jamsetji Tata create India's first integrated steel plant? Because he believed that India should not be dependent on Europe for all its steel requirements. He knew that steel is important for our roads, for our buildings, for our bridges, for virtually any construction in India. And therefore, he was very determined to give India its first integrated steel plant. Jamsetji Tata did not have the technology to make steel at that time. He had to go all around the world. He took a ship and went all the way to the United States of America to get the best technologists to come to India and help him set up India's first steel plant. Uh, Today, Tata Steel is such a proud and fine organization. But the impulse with which Tata Steel was created was saying, how can we give India its own steel? The impulse with which the Tata Group today, under the chairmanship of Mr. Chandrasekaran, has announced the creation of a large semiconductor enterprise is also the same. How can we give India the semiconductors which are so important for the future of this nation? So these are big business opportunities. Make no mistake about it. But they are big business opportunities which contribute to nation building,
nation building?
which contribute to Atmanirbharta, like you were saying.
Fantastic, sir. Fantastic. This is how business and values can go together and still be successful.
Actually, I think a business with good values will go a long distance. Businesses which are short term in nature, which take shortcuts, may do well in the short term, but they will not last. Values keep the soul of your organization intact. Profits are like this dress that I am wearing. Today I may be wearing a blue jacket, tomorrow I can wear a shirt of another color. So profits and business performance will go up and down. But values are like the soul of the organization. Uh, they have to remain intact. And if you lose your values, then why are you building this organization? Is the key question that you should ask yourself.
That's fantastic, sir. So one of the lines in your book also, like Vedanta's, how can Vedanta and business be related? Or
Yes.
using the principles of Vedanta in business in the recent book.
Yeah, that is true. And Mr. Gopal Krishnan, who is my senior and my co-author of the Jamsetji Tata book, has studied this extensively, the longevity of companies. He has studied it extensively. And the idea of the Jamsetji Tata book actually came from him. I have co-authored it with him. And you're absolutely right. I think the Vedanta, and I would even contend the scriptures of most religions from across the world, all religions from across the world, all religions lay emphasis on values. They don't lay emphasis on profits. They don't lay emphasis on the frills of life, but they lay emphasis on values. Because values are at the core of civilization. Honesty, integrity, hard work, these days agility, uh, your ability to give back to community. All these are core values which underpin an organization. And organizations have to protect these. I would think the CEO of any organization, his or her key role is to be a custodian of those values of the organization.
So Tatas have spent money on community development. way before the CSR 2% profits, corporate social responsibility. This is what I understand from the discussions we have. So,
That is true. I don't want to any of you to think that the Tatas are a perfect organization. The Tatas have also had our successes, we have also had our lack of successes. But protecting values has always been a core desire and something that the Tatas have tried their best to do, from my understanding, over the past 150 years. My thought is that if you want to build an organization which lives for a long time, focus on those values. That is what will help you in building that organization.
fantastic, sir. Fantastic. So today it's a startup world,
Yep.
and there are young entrepreneurs who are striving and building organizations or coming up with innovative ideas is what the world is all around right now. And there are a lot of discussions also going on around startups. So can you throw some light on what good qualities a startup owner should have, or in fact, what makes your startup really successful? Because the success rate is in fact very, very low. So what should be seen as far as an idea is concerned, or getting the idea into reality and things
So
like
let
that?
me take you back to the times of Jamsetji Tata. At his time, he was also running a startup. I would actually call him the original startup man of India, because what was Tata Steel when it was just being created? It was a startup.
Yeah.
What was the Taj Hotel when it has just been created? It was a startup. So he was, and actually at his time, I would contend it was even more challenging for him because he had to do it when the British were ruling India. To say that I want to create an indigenous steel plant for Indians when the British were ruling India, and otherwise India would have to import its steel from UK and Europe. It was not easy. He faced a lot of resistance from the British, whether it was for the steel plant or whether it was for the creation of the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. You can read some of the stories of the resistance he faced from people like Lord Curzon, who at that time was the viceroy of the country. But having said that, let me come back to the modern generation. I think startup owners should focus on two or three things. One, I think you have to focus on what problem are you solving through your startup. Unless you're solving a real customer problem, you're not adding value to people. So, how are you solving a real customer problem or a real community problem, and how are you doing it better than what others are doing? Is, I think, one key area. So, the startups which have become immensely successful in India today are startups which are solving real problems, real customer problems or real community problems. The second thing that I think startups should look at is, once you know that you're creating customer value, do you have a business model which is economically viable? It may not be economically viable in year one or year two, but do you have a line of sight to making it economically viable, at least in the medium term? I think an economically viable business model is essential. Otherwise, a startup which is constantly in the red or constantly bleeding money is not going to last for very long, in my view. This may be an old fashioned point of view, but it is always my point of view. And the third thing I would still say from the Tata experience is, if your startup has to last for a very long time, then focus on creating value for the customer, but also focus on your own values. What values do you stand for? And build around those values. I find many startups in India doing that, but I also find many startups in India not doing that. This would be my suggestions.
So that means it's not valuation, but it is values.
Of course, it is values. Of course, I would think you have to create value for the customer. You have to create value for your shareholders. You have to create value for your community. You have to create value for your employees who are part of the organization. Unless you create value for all your stakeholders, you're not going to survive and flourish as an organization. Valuation that comes out of creating value for your stakeholders is the valuation that lasts. And I think there are many very good startup founders in India and startups in India which have realized that. But I believe it's important for every startup founder to bear this in mind.
That's fantastic, sir. Valuation from value, not from capital.
Yes, valuation comes from value, from the
Valuation.
value you create for your stakeholders.
That's really great. So that's a solid message to the
Of
young
course,
audience.
of
Yeah.
course, and I truly respect India's young startup founders. They have a great deal of courage, creating companies in so many different spheres. It's brilliant to see India having so many unicorns today, and so many people aspiring to be unicorns. But you will also, as you study these, you will find the best of those unicorns are actually solving problems for
Problem.
customers and creating good value.
Definitely. Yes, sir. So coming back to civil servants, sir. So and many young aspiring civil servants. Now, when we talk about values in business, now values in governance. Now, in fact, a civil servant has to adhere to even stronger values
Yeah.
because here profit is not the motive, not the main motive. So, what is your opinion, or can you throw some light on how budding civil servants should think when they're getting into this profession from your experience?
So, firstly, let me be honest. I have not studied the civil services very carefully, and therefore, my answer is a little more conceptual here. About the corporate world, I am able to speak with greater experience. But my understanding from my work with the Tata Group has been that doing business with a very clear sense of ethics, with a very clear sense of principles, gains you the respect of society and also enables you to transform industries, to transform communities. In the Tata Group, I know that we have a very firm Tata code of conduct, a code of ethics, and we live by that code. I had mentioned earlier in this conversation to you, in 38 years of my working with the Tata Group, not once have I been asked by the Tata Group to do anything wrong which goes against my conscience. And the Tata Group continues to flourish. So, one of the things that I want to put forward to civil service aspirants is you are in many ways the backbone of our nation. You will at some stage be the collector of a district. You will then be senior officials in government, joint secretaries and secretaries who set policies across this country. And in many ways, you're going to define the future of our country. We look up to you. I look up to IAS officers, I look up to IFS officers very much, ever since my school days and even until today. So, when you set an ethical code and when you do what you think is right for the community, what is right for your stakeholders, you're sending a very, very powerful message to society that this is the kind of India we want to build in the future. I'm not suggesting this is easy. I think ethics in any part of your life, whether it be your personal life, whether it be your professional life, is always challenging to maintain because life is full of distractions and temptations. But I think true character comes forward in our ability to withstand these temptations and distractions and do what we think is right. It is the people who do what is right who are always admired and respected in society. So, when you become a civil servant, you're becoming a civil servant because you want to contribute to our nation. Of course, you want to make a good livelihood, you want to build a good career, it provides you good status, but at the same time, I think the impulse of many good IAS officers who have spoken about and whom I have spoken with is what can I do to progress my nation? And if that is your impulse, then I think working with very strong ethical principles is a good foundation.
So, nation building.
Nation building is in the character of IAS. IAS is all about nation building. Civil service is all about nation building. And I have admired many IAS officers whom I have interacted with. Uh, and a lot of them are very intelligent people, very sharp, But at the same time, they're constantly thinking of what can I do to progress the community? How can I ensure that industry is developed in my state? Or how can I ensure that a community or a part of a community which is still underdeveloped is brought up? So these are the kind of questions which I think the civil service uniquely enables you to answer, because the civil service places you in positions of power, uh, and the impact of civil servants is huge across the country.
Sir, were there any ethical dilemmas you faced in your personal life or in your career?
Of course, there have been
So,
ethical dilemmas that I have faced in my personal
can you
life and
narrate
my
any
career,
small incidents?
and uh, many of these ethical dilemmas have been around, you know, doing something which is correct versus doing something which is expedient. And I would say the Tata Group has been very, very important in guiding me towards doing what I think is right. Uh, let me, uh, for instance, you know, if I have come across a franchisee or a distributor of one of the companies that I've been part of who has not been very upfront in his dealings, but he may be a very good franchisee or a distributor. We have always taken the view that we will not continue doing business with such a person. I think, uh, despite the fact that it may result in a loss of business. This is one such instance that I can give of where ethics plays a key role. And I think it's always helped us in the long term because it sends a very clear signal across the system that this is the only way that we are willing to do business.
So, you would have had pressures from the shareholders many a times when we are focusing on community development. So, convincing shareholders, was it easy in those times?
Uh, okay, let me say this that I think our shareholders, most of our shareholders at least, recognize the fact that by giving back to the community, which is at the core of the Tata Group, the Tata Group has also grown over the years and the decades. Um, if you look at the annual reports of companies of the Tata Group, community development is always given pride of place. Uh, and I think our shareholders understand that this is the only way the Tata Group will do business. Uh, ever since the days of Jamsetji Tata or Dorabji Tata or JRD Tata, our chairman have always mentioned this and been very clear that when Jamshedpur was being built as a township around Tata Steel, and I'm now referring to way back in the 1920s, there were shareholders, I am told, who stood up at annual general meetings and said, why is Tata Steel spending so much money on building a township in Jamshedpur? And I am told at that time, uh, Mr. R.D. Tata, who was J.R.D. Tata's father, he stood up and he said, we are building an industrial township here and we will invest what is required to make that industrial township happen. So I think that's always been the philosophy of the Tata Group, and shareholders today respect that.
Fantastic, sir. Sir, coming to our young audience,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of stress today in their day-to-day lives,
Yes.
and managing time is a difficult thing. So you were holding such top positions, and still you were able to find time to write so many good books. This shows your time management as well. This is one important aspect because we don't find time for many of our hobbies itself. And a young generation today is stressing out. By the time I go out of work, then things are over. So how do you balance these two? This is one, sir. And second important aspect is today younger generation is down because of maybe the influence of social media, and they are disheartened because of small failures. Very small failures are putting them down and they give up very easily. So that fighting spirit, or we call it as that killer instinct, is not visible in many. Of course there are many, but there are definitely few who are giving up very fast or buckle down to the pressures of the society, etc. So I want something like, can you come up with some thoughts for them so that it will be helpful for them?
Yeah. So I would say on this entire arena of stress and time management and sustaining your efforts for success, I would say two, three things. One, I think one thing which is required for success in any area of life is discipline and focused work. And let me give you an example from my writing of books. As an executive in the Tata Group, Monday to Friday, I would not get time to write. I would have my own work to do as a marketer or as a CEO of the company. But what I did was every Sunday, I would sit down at my laptop computer and I would not get up till I have written 1000 words. Now, that was difficult to do initially, but later on it became a habit. And that discipline actually helped me to write many books. Uh, that discipline also required me to sacrifice other things. For instance, in my younger days, I used to play a lot of cricket. I used to be a leg spinner with our Tata T team. But once I started writing every Sunday, I found I could not find time to play cricket. So I had to sacrifice the playing of cricket to do my writing. So I think the combination of discipline and focus helps you do what you always dream of. And while I'm saying this on this interview, it's not been easy. It's taken a long time to build that discipline into what I do. The second thing, so this is one thing that I would suggest: discipline and focus. The second thing I would say is that you know some social media is good, but I find a lot of social media, the mobile phone, and the internet and the social media on it is one of the biggest distractors of our time. So it's important we use it responsibly. Otherwise, you can just go on doom scrolling reel after reel after reel, and it will take away time from the other productive work that you want to do. So I would say treat your mobile phone as one more device in your life, but don't let it take control of your life. I think that's another bit of advice that I would like to provide. The third thing I would like young people to think about, me myself to think about, is we live life once. And when we live life once, what is the impact you want to make? Impact on your family, impact on society, impact on yourself. Once you think that you want to make an impact, you may not know which area you're going to build your expertise in, but once you know and you have the hunger to make an impact, then I think you will persist till you reach some results in life. That hunger to make an impact is very important, but that hunger to make an impact is also very fulfilling. So, for instance, you are a professor, you teach economics, and you make an impact on your students in class, and that must be very fulfilling for you when those students go on to uh, successfully clear examinations or achieve success in their careers, whether it was in the IAS or elsewhere. So that is, in your mind, very fulfilling for you to make that impact. For me, it is very fulfilling to make an impact if I write a book and tens of thousands of readers read that book and gain something from that book. I feel fulfilled I have made an impact. So, for everyone who is watching this show, I think we should ask ourselves, how do I want to make an impact in my respective field? You may be a lawyer, you may be a doctor, you may be a civil servant, you may be an architect, you may be working in a bank, um, you may be a musician. Whatever field you're in, I think it's very, very fulfilling in life to make an impact, because that makes you happy that you have been able to elevate the lives of others as well while doing something that you are passionate about. So that's the third thing that I would like to say. So I'd like to say, first, focus and discipline. Second, try to minimize distractions, particularly the mobile phone and social media, which is all pervasive these days. And the third, make an impact in whichever field you are. Be determined to make an impact and work towards it. Doesn't matter if it takes many years, but I think just the sheer determination to make an impact will take you places.
Fantastic, sir. Sir, identifying core competence. So, figuring out where you're good at.
Yeah.
So, that itself is a challenge for most of us.
It is, and it takes a long time. I should be honest, when I joined the Tata Group in 1987, I did not know that my core competence is marketing or branding. It took me a few years of working to figure out that this is what I like doing. And sometimes I think it's important as young people to meander, to try and experiment two or three things. You don't have to always go in a linear straight line. You experiment, look at two, three different spheres, two, three different areas that you want to work in. Then you understand which area appeals to you. For some people, that realization may come quickly. For some people, it may be 10 years down the road. But eventually, I think most of us will find that one area that we love working in. Let it take its time. You don't have to discover that immediately. That is what life is all about. That is the beauty of life. Take your time, experiment with two or three different fields, and then eventually you will fall in love with one or two things. Uh, but once you really love something, then build expertise in that area. Because eventually professionals like me and you are respected for our expertise. Today you're respected for your expertise in teaching. I may be, my books are read because people feel there is some value I'm adding through my books. So similarly, but that has been built on, lots of writing and efforts to do a lot of writing. So similarly, I think building depth and expertise in a particular field becomes very important. But don't worry if you have still not understood that this is the area of my passion. Experiment, meander a little bit, and eventually you'll find something that you really love doing.
So, I can put writing is your passion and the working. So,
Yeah, so I think of myself in only two fields now. I think of myself as a marketer and a writer.
right.
Okay, but this is the realization I have at the age of 63 years. At the age of 25 or 30, I did not have this realization. I found my passion in marketing in my 30s. I found my passion for my writing in my 40s and 50s. So it takes time. It takes time to unpeel the onion and say this is at the core of who I am. So today I am able to answer you confidently, saying that I am a marketer or a writer. If you had interviewed me when I was in my 30s, I would not have been able to answer you at that stage. I was still discovering myself then. Uh, and I think this is the truth of life. You explore it and then you understand yourself much better as you progress in life.
Sir, one follow up small question, sir. Is it the talent that drives my passion? That is, I'm doing something. Suppose I'm teaching. I find the result that I'm a good teacher.
Yeah.
Is that motivating me? Or that the result is motivating me, that I'm a good teacher and therefore I'm passionate about it? Or is it the inherent skill or my passion for teaching that is bringing out a result? So, is it the success that makes me a good teacher or develop passion towards? So, this is a very thin line to
It is a thin
identify.
line. It is a thin line. I have also been, thinking about this. I think at the core is the passion.
Core is the passion.
Okay. Finally, I have to be passionate about writing a book. Unless that passion is there, you will not enjoy what you're doing. A result is the consequence. Are 10 people reading that book or 10,000 people reading that book? That is a consequence. And of course, I feel happy if many more people read the book. But if I were not enjoying the act of writing, then how many ever people read the book, it would not matter. If you don't enjoy teaching, at the end of the day, even if your students are very successful, I'm not sure you'll feel joy in stepping into the classroom every day. So I think at the core of it is our passion for doing something. Where does that passion come from? That passion can come from capability, Sometimes it's a God given gift. Sometimes you work on developing that through your life by sheer practice. That passion can come from an inner urge within you saying, this is what I want to do. And I think, where does that inner urge come from? And it's very difficult to say, but you have an inner urge to teach, I have an inner urge to write. So it can come from that inner urge within you. That passion can come from a dream that you have, saying, I want to pursue this dream. But I think the passion is the first thing that has to happen, because when you have passion, you enjoy what you're doing. When you have passion for a field, you enjoy what you're doing. And when you enjoy what you're doing, then life becomes very beautiful. Then, the stresses are very manageable, because you're really enjoying every element of what you're delivering. So I think passion is at the core, but results are very motivating. When you do something with a lot of passion and you achieve very good results, then it's very, very motivating. So I think results are important, but I would rate them secondary to passion.
Sir, coming to the global economy situation right now, or the environment right now, it's a lot of mess out there because of maybe the tariffs or because of the wars that are going on. And of course, these situations would have been there earlier also. Under such circumstances, when the situations are not going your way, especially not only for business people, as a country as a whole, so one is Atmanirbharta, as you have talked about, because you can't depend more on other countries, and how India as a nation should cope up with these kind of problems which are coming every now and then.
See, I'm not an expert on global economics. I'm not an expert on geopolitics. But I would like to say this, that I think India is in a unique position in the world today. We are a huge economy. Amongst the major economies in the world, we are the fastest growing economy. Sky is the limit for most categories in India today. We have a large consumer base within the country. And my belief is, as long as you are catering to specific consumer needs in the country today and doing it very well, the scope for Indian businesses to grow is huge. Not just because of the large population of the country, but even with wherever your GDP growth is pegged, whether your GDP growth is 6% a year or 7% a year or 8% a year, there are so many people moving up economic strata every year. People are moving from the lower middle class to the middle class, from the middle class to the upper middle class, from the upper middle class to the affluent class. And each such transition means there is more purchasing power. But people want value, and people want to see how their needs are going to be met. So if you genuinely identify consumer needs that have to be met, and then you put your heart and soul into developing the right products and services, I think the sky is the limit for Indian businesses. Of course, this requires good consumer insight. Of course, this requires a very sound business mind to build the business out. It requires excellent execution, because India is a vast country. It requires a lot of focus of which target market am I going for, and how will I, what is my strategy there. But if you do all this, I think what shall I say, um, the opportunity in India is huge. And whatever be the global situation, I think this huge Indian opportunity should be on top of our minds. And this is the opportunity that the very successful businesses of the future are going to seize.
Fantastic, sir. Sir, today it is an era of AI, and as we have discussed about human element, which is the core of the Tata Group, and today AI is taking away jobs, or more of mechanization, more of automation. So, can we say that this human element is going to still stay strong in spite of industrialization 4 that we are seeing right now?
Of course, I think so. I think AI is a transformative technology. It is transforming industry after industry. I am a marketer. I have seen how AI tools and AI techniques are helping us come up with creatives or with videos or with other marketing inputs at a much more rapid pace than we could do earlier. I have seen how AI helps us in our research. But at the same time, I think what really makes that happen is a combination of human beings and AI. Human beings who are adept in the use of AI, human beings who know how to utilize AI, are the people who are going to be the masters of this universe. Eventually, and I'm now coming at this from my point of view as a marketer, eventually, you and I, as consumers, are human beings. And we will respond to brands based on how those brands touch our emotions, how they touch our hearts. So it's still at the core of everything we do is still human society. But I would also like to, sound a warning for myself and for everyone who is listening here. It's important to be adept in the ways of using AI. Otherwise, we can get very outdated. So, therefore, knowing what AI can achieve, what its capabilities are, and how you can use it becomes very important. It is this combination of very capable human beings and very capable AI which will eventually create magic in the future.
Fantastic, sir. Capable human beings and capable AI.
Yeah.
That creates magic.
That's right.
It was great speaking to you, sir. It's a pleasure. And
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to be here today at VisionIAS. And thank you very much for hosting me on this interview. And I hope that some of the thoughts that I've been able to discuss have been of value to the people, all of you who have been listening to us. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to engage in this conversation. Thank you very
thank you,
much.
sir.